The rain had been falling for hours, cold, steady, relentless. It washed over the cracked sidewalks and empty parking lots of the sleepy town of Maple Hollow, where winter seemed to linger just a little longer than it should. The street lamps flickered in the haze, casting golden halos on the puddles that mirrored a world both silent and somber. In the corner of town, just past the diner that closed too early and the thrift store that hadn't had new stock in years, sat a modest garage. The faded sign read Grady's Auto Repair, its paint peeling like old wallpaper, but the inside glowed softly with life. A single bay door stood half open, the only source of warmth on that otherwise damp night. Inside, the mechanic worked in quiet concentration. His name was Grady Miller, early 40s, flannel shirt rolled up to the elbows, grease on his hands, and a perpetual furrow between his brows. Life had weathered him, but hadn't taken his gentleness. His eyes, tired as they were, still held a quiet kindness that spoke of a man who had seen much and chosen compassion anyway. In the far corner of the garage, a little girl lay curled on a makeshift cot lined with an old blanket. Maddie, his 8-year-old daughter, had fallen asleep waiting for him to finish. Her school bag served as a pillow, and her small chest rose and fell steadily. She never complained. Not about the long hours, not about the oil smell, not about the silence that filled their tiny apartment at night. She was all he had left since Sarah, his wife, passed 3 winters ago. Cancer, quick and cruel. He turned back to the engine he was fixing, a beat-up pickup that needed more than he could give it tonight, and wiped his hands on a rag when he heard it. A low, dragging noise, a metallic clunk. Then, silence. Grady stepped outside into the rain, scanning the lot. Headlights dimmed in the distance as a car limped into view, steam curling from under the hood. A classic red Mustang, the kind people restored with love. But this one had seen better days. It coasted awkwardly to a stop, half on the gravel, half on the curb. The door opened. Out stepped a woman. She was drenched, her coat soaked through, her hair plastered to her cheeks. She looked like she had been driving for hours, maybe days. Her hands trembled as she tried to close the hood, failing miserably. The car hissed and popped, protesting the night like a wounded animal. Grady approached slowly, cautiously. "Ma'am, you all right?" She turned to him, startled. Her eyes met his, wide, glassy, uncertain. For a moment, neither spoke. I think something broke," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "I didn't know where else to go." Up close, she was younger than he expected. Early 30s, maybe. There was a quiet desperation about her. Not the kind that begged for help, but the kind that had run out of options. Her clothes were worn but neat. She wasn't homeless, not exactly. But she wasn't okay either. Grady nodded toward the garage. "Let's get you out of the rain first. I'll take a look at the car." She hesitated. "I won't ask questions," he added gently. That seemed to unlock something. She nodded and followed him into the garage, her boots squishing with each step. He grabbed a dry towel from a hook and handed it to her. Maddie stirred in the corner but didn't wake. Grady pointed to an old folding chair. "Sit. You're shivering." "I'm sorry," she said, barely meeting his eyes. "I didn't mean to intrude." "You didn't," he said, setting a kettle on the hot plate. "This place stays open for folks who need it, especially on nights like this." She glanced around the garage. It was cluttered, cozy in its own way, an old radio softly playing jazz, a wall calendar stuck on the wrong month, a coffee mug holding pens instead of coffee. "I'm Grady." A pause. Then she offered a small nod. "Call me Ellie." He smiled, not pressing further. Names were strange things. Sometimes they meant everything. Sometimes nothing at all. He handed her a chipped mug of hot cocoa, something he always kept on hand for Maddie. She took it with both hands like it might break. For the next half hour, Grady worked quietly under the Mustang's hood, while Ellie sat motionless, lost in thought. The car had a blown gasket, maybe worse, and it would take days to get parts. She probably knew that already. "She's asleep?" Ellie asked quietly, glancing at Maddie. Grady nodded. "Yeah, out cold. She's beautiful. She's everything." Ellie looked down at her hands. "You're doing this alone?" He didn't answer right away, just gave a soft smile. "Trying to." The rain picked up again outside, drumming harder against the roof. Grady finished his inspection and washed his hands. "You're not driving anywhere tonight. Engine shot. You can crash on the cot if you want. I'll take the bench." Ellie looked like she wanted to refuse. But exhaustion was a powerful thing. So was kindness, when you hadn't seen it in a long time. "Thank you," she whispered. "Don't thank me yet. That bench is murder on the back," he chuckled. She almost smiled. He gave her a clean blanket and turned off the overhead light, leaving only the soft glow of the lamp in the corner. As he lay down on the bench and stared up at the ceiling, he couldn't help but wonder about her. Why she was alone, where she came from, why her voice sounded like someone who'd once had everything and lost it all. And just before sleep took him, he noticed something odd, a keychain on her bag. Shiny, gold out of place. It looked expensive. It had a small emblem. A crest, maybe? A monogram? He couldn't quite place it, but it stirred something in the back of his mind. Something he thought he'd forgotten. Morning came quietly to Maple Hollow, the kind of slow winter dawn where the sun struggled to break through the gray. Inside the garage, the air was warmer now, scented faintly with coffee and motor oil. Grady stirred on the bench, rubbing his neck. He'd slept worse before, but not by much. The sound of soft humming reached his ears. He sat up and blinked. In the tiny kitchenette corner, Ellie stood with her back to him, hair loosely tied, sleeves rolled up, carefully plating up some scrambled eggs and toast from a pan. Maddie sat nearby, still in her pajamas, feet swinging from the chair, and a bright grin lighting up her face. "Daddy," she chirped, "Miss Ellie made breakfast." Ellie turned, a little flustered. I hope you don't mind. I saw the eggs in the fridge and figured—" Grady stood, rubbing his arm sheepishly. "Mind? Haven't had anyone cook in this place since— well, it's nice." He moved toward the counter, grateful more than he could say. It wasn't just the food, it was the gentle sound of Maddie's giggle, the way Ellie carried herself with unspoken grace, despite the tired shadows under her eyes. Over the next few days, what began as an unspoken arrangement turned into a quiet routine. Grady insisted she stay until the parts arrived. "Too dangerous to go driving a car like that," he'd say, and Ellie, though hesitant, didn't argue. She took to sweeping the garage floor when she thought he wasn't looking, helping Maddie with homework, and even cleaning the old coffee maker that hadn't worked in months, and then somehow getting it to run again. "I think you've got a knack for fixing things," Grady said one afternoon. Ellie shrugged with a soft smile. "Maybe. Some things, not all." He didn't ask what she meant, though he wanted to. Instead, he handed her a screwdriver, and they spent the next hour replacing a car battery together. There was a strange peace in those days, ordinary moments stitched together like a warm quilt. The sizzle of bacon, Maddie reading aloud from her favorite book, the low rumble of engines and the clinking of tools. Ellie didn't speak much about her past, but one rainy evening, as Maddie slept soundly in the corner, she opened up. "I was supposed to be married," she said softly, her hands wrapped around a cup of tea. Grady looked up from the carburetor he was cleaning. "I stood there," she continued, "in the most expensive dress I'll probably ever wear. My father insisted on it. Tailored lace, pearls from Italy. I thought it meant something, that he meant something." She paused. "But he didn't show. Left me standing there in front of 300 people. My father didn't even look surprised, just embarrassed. He told me to disappear until the tabloids calmed down." Grady was quiet. "After that, I took what I could, got in the Mustang and drove. No plan, just anywhere but there." There was no bitterness in her voice, just exhaustion, like someone who had cried all her tears and now lived in the quiet after. "I'm sorry," he said gently. She looked up. "For what?" "For what people like him do to people like you." Ellie smiled, faint and real. "What about you, Grady? Who did you lose?" He took a breath. "My wife, Sarah. Cancer took her before we could grow old. Maddie was 5. She doesn't remember much. I do. Too much sometimes." They sat in silence after that, not uncomfortable, just shared. But not all moments were quiet or kind. 2 days later, Grady returned from a parts run to find the garage eerily still. Maddie was sitting alone, clutching her teddy bear, eyes big and confused. "Where's Ellie, sweetheart?" "She left." The word hit him like a hammer. "What do you mean?" "She hugged me real tight, said thank you, then she drove off." Grady ran outside, but the Mustang was gone. Rain had begun to fall again, light but sharp, as if echoing the ache in his chest. No note, no goodbye. Just gone. For days the garage felt hollow. He tried to brush it off, told himself she was a stranger, a passerby, not his responsibility. But the ache didn't fade. Maddie asked about her every night, and he didn't have the heart to lie. "She's probably on her way home," he would say. "Maybe she just had to go." But something didn't sit right. One evening, while cleaning the garage, he spotted her duffel bag still tucked behind the cot. She'd left in a rush. Curious, he opened the side pocket and froze. Inside was a photo, weathered, creased, and partially water-stained. It showed Ellie as a child standing between two elegantly dressed people. Her parents, he guessed. Behind them was a mansion, ivy-covered white stone, gates that screamed wealth. But what caught his eye was the crest in the corner of the photo. It matched the keychain she always carried. A stylized gold emblem, a lion entwined with a rose. The Van Alcott family crest. He'd seen it once, in a newspaper story years ago. Real estate moguls, one of the richest families in the state. What was a Van Alcott doing in his garage? And why had she never told him? Grady stared at the photo long after the garage closed. It didn't make sense. The way she'd scrubbed floors, fixed coffee, laughed with his daughter, none of it fit the image of an heiress. Unless she didn't want to be that person anymore. A week passed, then two. The Mustang never came back. Grady tried to bury himself in work. He fixed carburetors, rotated tires, kept his hands busy and his mind numb. Maddie's questions about Ellie lessened, though her bedtime stories still included a mysterious princess who liked cars and made pancakes. Every now and then, Grady caught himself glancing at the road beyond the garage, hoping to see those familiar headlights again. But nothing. Then came the letter. It was a rainy Thursday, because of course it was, when Maddie handed him the small envelope left at the doorstep. No return address, just his name, written in careful handwriting he'd seen on grocery lists and notes by the kettle. He opened it slowly, as if the paper might crumble in his hands. "Grady, I'm sorry for leaving without saying goodbye. There are things about me I should have told you, but I didn't know how. You were the first person in a long time who saw me as just Ellie, not a scandal, not a burden, not someone to fix. The truth is, I wasn't just running from heartbreak. I was running from everything. My family's expectations, the spotlight, the people who told me what I was worth based on my weight, my name, or who loved me last. I was tired of being a story in someone else's paper. But your garage, your kindness, Maddie's sweet little voice, it reminded me that I'm still someone worth being, even if no one else believes it yet. There's something I need to do before I can find peace. But if you'll let me, I hope to return, this time, not as a woman on the run, but as someone who chooses to stay. Take care of yourself. Tell Maddie thank you for the bedtime song." Always, Ellie Grady sat with the letter in his lap, his hands trembling just slightly. It wasn't much, but it was something. A promise of return, a sliver of unfinished hope. Still, winter faded into spring without another word. Then came the town's annual spring festival. It wasn't much, just hay bales, corn dogs, a carousel, but folks looked forward to it. Grady brought Maddie every year, mostly for the cotton candy and the games. This year felt no different, until it did. They were sitting by the picnic tables, Maddie giggling with her painted face, when he noticed a stir in the crowd. People were murmuring, turning their heads. And then he saw her, Ellie, not in the oversized coat or rain-soaked clothes from that night at the garage, but in a soft green dress that flowed like willow leaves. Her hair was brushed and loose, and her eyes, still the same gentle storm, found his across the crowd. She walked with quiet grace, not seeking attention, yet unable to avoid it. People recognized her. "Isn't that," someone whispered, "she's a Van Alcott. Didn't she vanish?" But Ellie kept her eyes on Grady, her steps steady, unflinching. When she reached him, she crouched down first, at Maddie's level. "Hey, sweetheart," she said, her voice breaking just a little. "I missed you." Maddie launched herself into her arms without hesitation. "I knew you'd come back. Daddy said you would." Grady stood still, unsure if this was a dream or some cruel mirage. Ellie rose slowly, her gaze never leaving his. "You kept your promise," he said softly. "I almost didn't," she replied. "But I realized something. Home isn't about where you come from or what name you carry. It's about who sees you when no one else does." She reached into her bag and handed him something. A small velvet box. Inside was the keychain, polished, restored, still bearing the Van Alcott crest, but now with a tiny engraved tag attached. Eleanor. Just Ellie. "I had it changed," she whispered, "because I want to be both. The girl who got lost and the woman who found her way back." Grady's throat tightened. "I didn't care about who you were, Ellie." "I know," she smiled. "That's why I came back." They stood there for a moment, the fair spinning around them, children's laughter blending with carousel music. Grady finally asked, "So, what now?" Ellie looked toward Maddie, who was now twirling under a tree, pretending to be a superhero princess. "Now," Ellie said, "I fix what I broke. I build something that lasts. And if you'll let me, maybe I stay, help around the shop, read bedtime stories, make bad coffee." He laughed, shaking his head. "You fixed the coffee maker, remember?" "I did," she grinned, "but I still make terrible coffee." They stood side by side, not needing anything more than that moment. No grand declarations, no dramatic kiss. Just the shared knowing that something real had begun, not under chandeliers or in mansions, but in a garage on a rainy night, when two people looked past each other's scars and saw something worth staying for.